I'd like to share with you the top 3 things I've learned from being a monk. So I've been a celibate monk for about 8 years, and I've been in a spiritual path with my spiritual master, Her Holiness Saima, for about 17 years. I have transformed miraculously from the person that I was to the person that I am, and I still love evolving every day. And I find myself growing a lot still to this moment, and I think I know that I will for the rest of my life. When I first started on a spiritual path, I was in a deep amount of suffering. At that time in my life, I had a great life on the outside. I was in grad school in Boulder, Colorado. I had great friendships. I was a passionate high-performance rock climber. I would ski in the wintertime. I was really active. I'd drink beer. I ate hamburgers. I was dating, and enjoying the experience of dating. But on the inside, I was just really suffering. I would call it anxiety and depression at this time, with the hindsight that I have now. I remember I was a community college instructor. I was teaching math to community college students as a side gig while I was in grad school. And I remember driving home from teaching a class that night, and I just remember having the thought, if I got smacked by a semi and my life ended here, I'd be okay with that. I was really sad. And I was really just in a huge amount of suffering, which I couldn't understand. So I had been meditating at that time, and then when I met my spiritual master, everything shifted. Everything changed. I started to unlock feeling grateful and happy and peaceful, most notably. And I started practicing accepting myself as I was. And this suffering would just magically disappear, being around her and the community and practicing her teachings. So I've been practicing that for the last 17 years, and ever since I became a monk and had the privilege to be initiated as a monk in our order, the level of depth of peace and joy and access to having peace and joy is just unfathomable. There's no bottom to it. It just keeps going and going, right? So I want to share with you the 3 things that I've learned as a part of that path, okay? You're not a monk, nor should you become a monk, okay? This is not a monk recruitment program, all right? In fact, I don't think anyone should really become a monk because it's very challenging and requires a high degree of commitment that I don't think most people have, that I did not have at a point, and that I built up to it. And it's right for me. It's not right for most people. Enjoy your life. Eat, drink, and be merry. I think that was Dave Matthews' song. Anyway, the top 3 things. Number 1, become aware. This is the core teaching of our spiritual path, and certainly I think any spiritual path. The more that we become aware, the more access we get to transforming. So, for example, today I was in a yoga class, and I noticed myself getting pretty irritated by some other people in the class. They're making a lot of noise, like, making all these noises. And it was really disturbing my shanti, my peace. And I'm just being honest with you, And I was like, bro, keep it down, You don't have to be like that. And, and I know this part of myself that gets kind of judgy and irritated. And I realized years ago that loud noises really frighten me. And I get angry actually from loud noises. Like when someone knocks over a water bottle, I get angry, but I didn't realize that I got angry because I got scared. It scared me. And so it's all this whole world that I've learned about myself around how I can be judgmental towards other people, how I can be righteous to justify my judgments. For example, like people driving slow here in Naples, Florida. It just drives me bonkers sometimes if I allow it to. So all of this to say is that I've become aware of these patterns that I have in my life, with myself, not in my life, these patterns within myself, right? I can be judgmental at times. I can be controlling because I want the world to be a certain way. Why? Because all of it compromises my safety on some level. Yeah. So I've done a lot of my own work and continue in my own work to become more aware. And the more aware that I become, the better that I can reach my goals. And for me, one of the goals that I have is to be the best person that I can be. I want to be kind, passionate, compassionate, powerful, I have goals that I want to achieve in my life, for myself, professionally, career-wise, a lot of different things. The more that I become aware of myself, not just the bad parts, so to speak, or the limited parts of myself, the good parts of myself, the more that I can transform those things, right? And the more that I can take responsibility for those parts of myself that I don't appreciate and become better. So number 1, become aware. All right. Number 2, take action. Gosh, for so long in my life, 1, I wasn't aware, and 2, I didn't take action, or the kind of action that I took was inside of a narrative that I was a victim to whatever was happening in my life. So I'll take something more historically. I would get really upset. Oh, I know. I would judge people who were wealthy, right? And it was all inside of this narrative that I didn't understand then, but as I became aware of this, I've been able to shift that. This narrative that people who have financial wealth got it for reasons that I don't have access to, right? That they're lucky or that they inherited it, especially with like young people who had wealthy parents. I'd kind of judge, God, this is really vulnerable. Anyway, I would judge them because I'd be like, well, they just inherited it, because somehow I thought that I could never have that, right? And I felt jealous about those kinds of things. A lot of this was from my family of origin too, around beliefs that they had about wealth and all of that. So I became aware that 1, that I limited myself with this belief that like other people had wealth that I couldn't get access to. Then I was like, you know what? That's not actually true. There are ways for, I believe, anyone, regardless of their circumstance. It might be much more challenging for other people than for others to attain wealth, but it can be done because there are countless examples of people that have done this throughout history. And that if I just take the right kind of action that is inside of the narrative that I'm responsible for the results of my life, then it can happen, right? So becoming aware and not taking action is almost pointless, because if we become aware of my example, some degree of my own limitation, and I don't take that action, then I just create this narrative that I'm helpless and that things can't change, which is really just the narrative of a victim, right? Which I have been and still live in sometimes, right? Though I'm practicing extracting myself from this. So become aware and take action. Take action that is in line with the goals that we have for ourselves, that is in line with the results that we want for ourselves. And inside of that action is taking responsibility for the situation that we're in or the state of our life, right? Now, here's the third one, and this is the most important one. Surrender. Now, let me define surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up. It does not mean stopping taking action. It's not about inaction. Surrender is an action, and it means releasing. It means accepting myself and a situation for a brief period of time such that I get access to a new way of being. What's an example of this? The best example I've ever had in my life was when I was in the last romantic relationship I was in about 10 years ago or so. I'm 46 now, and I think it was when I was around 36, something like that. And I was in love with this woman, and I really, really wanted it to work. I was still in our spiritual community, but people started coming up to me and being like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, what's wrong? I'm in love. I'm amazing. And they'd be like, oh. Like, they didn't believe me. And I was like, what's wrong with these people? I'm in love. I feel amazing. Like I feel like people do in romantic comedies. Like, it felt like a movie. I was that in love. But over time, in that relationship, I realized that something was really missing, and I didn't understand what. And the greatest act, I think so. I think this is true. The greatest act of surrender that I've made in my life was ending that relationship, even though there were no compelling reasons to end it, other than this feeling that I had inside, beyond a feeling, a knowingness that I had inside that I had to end the relationship. I didn't really understand why, because we were totally in love and it was going amazing in so many ways. In one way, it wasn't going amazing, which was my relationship to my spiritual path. And I made a choice where I chose my spiritual path over that relationship. And it was an act of surrender. right? That's how we say that, an act of surrender. Surrender can't be inaction. It's an act. It's a choice. It's a doing of something. It's making a decision, which is cutting off other options and choosing just this one, deciding on just this one option. So I surrendered to this act that I knew I needed to make, which was ending the relationship. What then happened was I stepped into this gateway of this miraculous life that I have, of living a life of joy and happiness and passion and peace. And even days when I don't feel that way, I have access to getting access to each one of those qualities in every moment of every day. So in our life, sometimes when we're fighting something, what we need to do is just surrender to it. Accept that this is the way it is. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a circumstance, that there's some kind of knowledge or teaching or transformation available to me if I surrender to whatever this relationship or situation is. Now, it might mean accepting the situation for what it is for a moment, again, in order to get access to a new way of being, thinking, or feeling. So this is what surrender gives us access to, a deeper wisdom, a deeper knowingness, a deeper version of ourselves that maybe we didn't have any access to like it was for me. So again, become aware, take action, and whenever you can, surrender. All my best.